correct ako kay Gordon. There is a conflict of interest in his being chairman of the Red Cross and at the same time a senator of the Republic of the Philippines. Lalo na ngayon. So there is a need for an accounting. Barabarahin mo kasi ano ka. What is sauce for the gander is sauce for the goose. You audit me, I audit you. Because we are in government. We cannot separate or have an identity other than what you are, a worker of government. Some say they say the honorable worker. Some say that the much abused phrase, public servant kuno. You are not really serving the people. Me, when I address you, I say, all of us, we are just workers of government. If you are lazy, then that is the fault of the people for electing you. If you are corrupt, kasalanan ng tao yan.
The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Jess De Los Santos. Several groups are currently holding protests to commemorate the martial law declaration 49 years ago and to remember the over 3,000 killed under the Marcos regime. Marlene Alcaide joins us live from Quezon City to tell us the latest. Marlene, what do you have for us?
Yes, Jess, though we're in the middle of pandemic, different human rights groups gathered and mobilized People's Caravan today, September 21st, the same day in 1972, when former President and dictator Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law. The People's Caravan started from Quezon City all the way to Manila to mark the 49 years since the declaration of martial law. With the theme Marcos Duterte, Pandemya ng Pasakit, the groups are protesting against injustices during the Marcos regime as well as under the current Duterte administration. The caravan started along Commonwealth Avenue in Quezon City and will pass along the University of Santo Tomas in España, where they will be joined by another group. A short program will be held there, after which the group will proceed to Mendiola for another mobilization. All groups will then gather at the Liwasang Bonifacio in Ermita by 4 p.m. A wreath laying was also held at the Bantayog ng mga Bayani to pay tribute to martial law martyrs and victims. Aside from remembering the extrajudicial killings, the groups also expressed their dismay in the current administration's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Though it's a challenge to hold a protest in the middle of a health crisis, they believe it is important to show their dismay on corruption issues surrounding the government spending on the pandemic fund. They also believe that Duterte is no different from the Marcoses. It has been 49 years since the martial law was declared in the country, but human rights groups and grassroots organizations are urging Filipinos to never forget.
Dahil sa tindi ng kapabayaan sa paglaban sa COVID, ay inuuna pa ng gobyerno ang kanilang mga sariling interes, ang pagnanakaw ng pondo na dapat ay napupunta sa mga nabibiktima ng COVID at sa ating mga hospital workers at pondo para sa bakuna ng mamamayan. Ang nangyayari po ngayon ay ang pagbabalik ng dynasty ng mga Marcos. Kaya ang aming sigaw, Marcos Duterte, walang pinag-iba, never again to martial law. Kaya hindi kami makakapayag kahit sa tindi po ng COVID ay mas nakakatakot ang pagbalik ng mga Marcos, mas na nakakatakot ang kampihan ng Marcos Duterte para muling pagnakawan, gawan ng karahasan at manumbalik ang madilim na mga kasaysayan ng martial law sa Pilipinas. Kaya nananawagan kami sa lahat, ang martial law ay isang madilim na bahagi ng Pilipinas, umuulit sa panahon ni Duterte. Huwag tayong matakot, labanan natin.
Thank you. That was Marlene Alcaide reporting live from Quezon City. Now, as the country marks the 49th anniversary of the declaration of martial law, Vice President Leni Robredo urges Filipinos to never forget the atrocities under the Marcos regime. Robredo says we must always remember that under Marcos, Filipinos suffered, were robbed, tortured, and even killed. She adds that up to now, we are still paying for the debts incurred during the military rule. Robredo says Marcos was a dictator and he did not pay for his crimes. Instead, his family continues to enjoy the wealth stolen from the people. That's why amid clear efforts to revise history, Robredo urges us to speak up. She says that if we choose to stay silent, money and power will dictate our history. The Education Department said only 24 schools out of over 600 nominees all over the country have so far passed their standards for reopening of face-to-face classes. DepEd spokesperson Nepomuceno Malaluan tells Radio 5's Failon that they want to increase this number to 100. The DepEd will meet with the Health Department tomorrow to assess more schools in low-risk areas of their readiness to conduct physical classes. The two agencies is also set to iron out the details for the safe reopening of these schools. Though 100 public schools are proposed to reopen in the pilot run, Malaluan says some private schools have also appealed to be included.
Yung 100 na meron na tayo mga paaralan ay public schools pero nagbukas tayo dahil marami ding private schools na gustong lumahok na ng 20 additional. Pero yung selection process sa 20 ay gagawin pa lamang. Wala pa kaming tukoy 20 na private schools, pero yan ay bukas din ay isa sa pinag-proseso. Meron na kaming guidelines ng assessment. Sumusunod din dun sa ating tinatawag naming safety assessment readiness tool na to evaluate.
Okay.
But yung process of pag-apply at saka pag-evaluate, yun ang ipalangkasin namin bukas.
Meanwhile, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere tells One News's The Chiefs that the two agencies will need to revisit their guidelines for limited face-to-face classes. This as the initial rules were crafted before the emergence of the Delta variant.
Over these past months, we have been preparing for this. Actually, we had presented this to IATF, I think that was June of this year, where we already were able to identify these schools based on the risk assessment that was done by our schools. And this risk assessment tool has been worked on by DepEd and DOH. So ang kailangan na lang po will be the final operational guidelines wherein on Wednesday po yata ay may meeting na kami with DepEd to have this so that it can be rolled out. So ang DepEd po ang magsasabi kung kailan talaga mag-uumpisa.
Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. The President questions the alleged false positive cases from PRC laboratories. And for that, the lower house wants to investigate the COVID-19 tests being conducted by Red Cross. President Duterte hits at Senator Dick Gordon once again. This time, the president asks whether the senator diverted millions of his pork barrel funds to Red Cross. And Cynthia Villar is still the country's richest senator with a net worth of almost 4 billion pesos, while Laila de Lima is the poorest senator with only 9.5 million pesos based on their latest SALN. And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later at 1 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess De Los Santos, mask on. Wash hands and stay safe. Philippines, we are One News.